Peace be upon you, friends. With you is your friend Darum. I ask you to support the channel by subscribing, liking, and posting motivating comments and an enjoyable viewing experience for you. My brother, you can, but you may not agree, but know that the request is from my mother and not from me. I straightened my seat and said anxiously, "What's wrong with my mother? Why didn't she ask me for what she wanted directly?" My brother, "Because I am the one who will take you." I looked at him surprised and wondered, "Where are you taking me?" He said hesitantly, "My mother wants me to take you to a sheik to read to you, and we finish it with this topic." "Why are you still insisting on it?" My brother, "I don't know, but she will not be reassured unless she goes with me to the sheikh. Do you think I am suffering from something?" My brother, "You must not deny that you are behaving strangely after your return from that trip on which you were absent for 3 years." He said it sadly and hesitantly. "Since you mentioned that period, I want to ask you about something." My brother, "What is it?" "Do you remember when you came in and told me that you were suffering from nightmares because of the book that I read in my room during my absence after our relative's son pointed it out to you?" My brother, "Yes, I remember." "Do you remember what happened after that?" My brother, "What do you mean specifically?" "I entered your room and you were covered in blood and crying, and you told me that I asked you to close your eyes a few minutes before, and you opened them to find yourself in that state." My brother, "True, but what?" My brother, "I was not covered in blood and I did not say that, and I was not crying in the first place. You were the one who came in and hugged me and started crying. I was very confused, and I did not want to provoke you by talking to you at that time. It was a shock, a huge shock. This was the first time I had discussed with my brother what happened that day, and I was not prepared for what I heard. I was, as I feared, just a crazy person imagining everything that happened." I smiled. My whole world collapsed. There was no dweller, there were no soldiers, and there was nothing. Just hallucinations of a crazy person. Classic symptoms for anyone suffering from schizophrenia, something I read about and know very well. But I did not think one day I was afflicted with it. This does not deny that I gained some knowledge from that library, but it seems that my mind could not bear it or the isolation that I suffered with. Hey, Amar! So he resorted to escaping as a form of adaptation to the harsh conditions that were imposed on him, and he has not returned since then. And this is very possible. With schizophrenia. My brother noticed the shock I was in when I realized that the talismanic science and my past memories with demons, masters and tribes were all a mirage. And he said to me with concern, "What's wrong with you?" My temporary solace in the ruins of my shattered world was interrupted, and I got up and began to change my clothes and said quietly, "I will not go with you." My brother, as he got up and was about to leave, "Tell my mother about it then." He said that phrase to me because he knew in advance that I could not bother my mother or father, even about something I detest like this. So I did not speak to her, trying to convince her of the futility of going to someone who devoted his life to selling his spit on. People decided to go and end the matter for their own sake, especially after knowing the truth about my madness. After 2 kisses and a hug from my mother, I followed it up with a quick prayer to God to protect us and my brother. We headed that afternoon in the car to the house of that thing that had received high recommendations from some of our family members to my mother, as usual, and that his secret was as good as she was told, and that he had healed many people with the blessing of reading it. At the first traffic light we stopped at, I asked my brother, "How much will this blessed one get paid?" My brother, I don't know, but the usual price is 500 reals, I said, laughing. Is there a stock exchange and tariffs for these things now? In the past, the sheikhs of Chira used to take what was provided to them, and the fixed tariff for water and oils only. My brother, I know you don't want to go, but please don't embarrass us in front of the sheikh, I said sarcastically. What do you think I will do to embarrass you? Oh, if I don't recover, for example. My brother, the important thing is that you remain silent as much as possible until we finish. I smiled while staring at the road in front of me. You don't believe in its benefits like me, do you? I opened the traffic light and my brother moved, saying, "The Quran is useful. The Quran, not humans." My brother, he is a skilled and knowledgeable man, and he has benefited a lot from him, I said as I looked out of the window. We will see the extent of these possibilities in treating insanity. My brother, you are not crazy. You are just psychologically tired. Don't worry, madness is not reprehensible these days. My brother, he will diagnose your condition and know if there is something wrong with you, and he will prescribe the appropriate treatment for you. God willing, I said sarcastically. Doctor, laboratory, and pharmacy in one man. My brother smiled as he stopped the car on the side of the road and said, "Stop mocking religion. We have arrived." I was silent and looked in amazement at my brother. We parked the car next to a large house. Its doors were open, and crowds of people of all ages and races gathered inside and outside. It was like a big party or a funeral parlor on its first day. We entered to find that the house was divided into two halves with a cloth curtain, an entrance for women and an entrance for men. We went to the section designated for men and sat in the waiting hall, which was crowded with men, children, and the elderly. My brother spoke with someone who seemed to be the general coordinator of the visitors to Al-Mutamashik. He walked back towards me after placing a sum of money, the amount of which I couldn't determine, in the man's hand. He sat next to me and said, "We will enter the Sheikh's office shortly." I smiled as I recalled some childhood memories and said, "Nothing has changed." Brother, what do you mean? It reminded me of my mother when she used to take me to read to me when I was young. I never expected that I would return to this matter and go through the same experience again. My brother, for my mother only. I looked at the groups of people sitting and standing and said, "Yes, just for her sake." The man called us and we entered the Al-Mutamashik and we sat with him. Unlike what happened to me and my mother when I was young, he was not in a rush to start reading, despite the large numbers waiting for him outside, as if he was deliberately keeping this crowd gathering to himself or something. He was chatting with my brother and joking with him while I watched them while waiting for the diagnosis session. My brother didn't say anything useful to him, except that I was tired and needed to read, he said, clenching his beard and staring at me.